The battlefield was silent like the calm after a great storm. Dark clouds hung low in the sky, hiding the sun like a secret. Smoke moved across broken ground, wrapping the ruins like a cold blanket. Bodies lay still, metal twisted, blood soaked the dirt, and standing in the middle of all this death was the warlord General Kravox. He was tall, proud, and cruel. His armor was black and red, covered in scars and human blood. He looked around and smiled, showing sharp yellow teeth. At his feet lay a dying human soldier, barely breathing. Kravox leaned close and whispered in a deep voice. "Let the vultures feast fast," he laughed loudly. The sound echoing across the empty land. He thought the war was over. He believed all the humans were dead or broken. To him, the fight was done. He raised his sword in the air and roared. "Victory belongs to Kravox." The alien soldiers behind him cheered. They started burning the human flags and crushing helmets under their boots. They believed it too. But they were wrong. Something else was moving in the ruins, not a machine, not an animal, not a soldier from Kravox's army. It was something silent, something angry, something human. A boot stepped into a puddle of blood, slow and steady. No sound, no warning, just one man. Watching from the shadows, his eyes burned with fury. His body was wrapped in torn black armor. One arm was metal, shining with wires and scars. His name was Commander Rook, and he was supposed to be dead. Buried alive under the rubble weeks ago, after the aliens dropped fire on his command center. But he survived, not because of luck. Because of pain, because of will, because he wasn't ready to die. They called him the First Flame back in training. Now he was only a shadow with fire inside his chest. Rook had watched the battlefield from a broken tower. He had seen Kravox kill the soldier. He had heard his words. "Let the vultures feast fast," Rook whispered to himself. His voice dry and sharp. "No, General," he said. "I feast first." He stepped down the ruined stairwell like a ghost, every movement full of purpose. He held a sharp blade in one hand, made of steel and anger. On his back was a long rifle, old but deadly. He moved through the ruins, passing burning wrecks, blood pools, and shattered bones. He did not cry. He did not scream. He was silent. Like death itself back on the field. Kravox turned to leave. He walked slowly, enjoying the smoke and the silence. That's when he heard it, a crack like metal against stone. He paused, turned his head slightly. Nothing there, only ruins and mist. But something didn't feel right. He narrowed his eyes. He walked a little faster now. One of his guards moved close and whispered, "My lord, shall we clear the zone?" Kravox waved his hand. "There is nothing left," he said. "Only bones and wind." The guard didn't speak again, but fear sat in his throat like a stone. Far behind them, Rook reached the edge of the hill. He looked down at the warlord and his guards, 10 of them, all armed, all trained. Rook didn't care. He knelt, pulled his rifle from his back. Took aim, breathed in, then he paused. This wasn't the moment to kill, no. He wanted Kravox to know fear first, to feel it deep in his heart. Rook lowered the rifle instead. He took a small metal coin from his pocket. It had a human mark on one side, a broken wing. He tossed it down the hill. It landed near the warlord's foot. Clink, clink. Kravox looked down, his smile faded. He bent to pick it up. His eyes widened. "Impossible," he whispered. The broken wing symbol meant one thing. Commander Rook. "No one survived that blast," said his second in command. But Kravox didn't answer. He just stared at the coin, then behind him. A voice growled low and sharp. "I feast first." Kravox turned fast. But he saw nothing, only smoke. But his heart beat faster. The shadows felt thicker. The silence heavier, the fear had begun. And Rook had only just started. The smoke from the battlefield rose high into the sky. Twisting like dark snakes, the sun tried to pierce through. But the clouds hid its light. The smell of blood and fire lingered, thick and choking, and somewhere in the ruins, Commander Rook moved like a shadow. Silent and deadly, he was not a man anymore. Or at least not fully. The humans who had trained him called him the First Flame. The aliens thought they had buried him under rubble. Crushed beneath their machines, they thought he was gone. But Rook had clawed his way out. Hand by hand, inch by inch, pain had carved his body, and anger had carved his soul. What survived the fire was not just a man, but a storm. He walked over broken walls and scorched earth. His mechanical arm glinted in the dying sunlight, wires crawling under the surface like veins. His eyes, once soft with hope, were now cold steel. He did not blink. He did not hesitate. Every step brought him closer to his prey, closer to Kravox, the warlord who had killed his friends, destroyed his home and laughed at human lives. Rook paused at the edge of a crater, listening. He could hear the distant clanging of metal, the low voices of alien soldiers even now. They did not know he had returned even now. They thought the humans were finished, he smiled faintly, just enough to show the ghost of a man who once lived. Then he crouched low, silent, waiting for the perfect moment. Flashback came unbidden, like lightning in a storm. Rook remembered the first day of the war. The humans had fought bravely but were outnumbered. Krevox's forces were like a tide of metal and teeth, crushing everything in their path. Rook's squad had been small but strong. They had fought like lions. But the aliens had fire that burned bones, weapons that could tear a man in two, and in the end Rook had fallen, trapped beneath rubble as Krevox watched and laughed. He had thought Rook was dead, but Rook had survived, and now he was no longer the boy they had underestimated. Back in the present, Rook moved through the ruins with purpose. He knew the first lieutenant he had to strike was Verox, a sadistic alien who tortured humans for fun. Verox believed in fear, not honor. Rook's plan was simple. Strike fast, strike hard, strike before he was seen. He reached the outskirts of the alien camp. The fires of the camp flickered in the dark, casting long shadows on the walls. He saw Verox standing in the center. Laughing as human prisoners screamed, Rook did not hesitate. He aimed carefully, lining up the shot. One breath, one heartbeat. The dart flew silently, piercing the darkness. A scream cut through the night and Verox fell, his eyes wide with terror. Chaos erupted in the camp. Aliens screamed, running blindly. Rook did not chase them. He stayed in the shadows, letting fear spread like wildfire. He moved like a phantom, leaving no trace. Every step was calculated, every movement deadly. He left behind symbols carved into the ground, blood and ash forming warnings. The first flame is back, the aliens whispered among themselves. The name spread faster than fire, reaching even Krevox in the distance. A young alien girl watched from a hidden rooftop. Her eyes were wide with fear and awe. She had seen the humans die, her friends taken, her family destroyed, but this human Rook was different. He was not just surviving, he was punishing. She wondered if she should help him or flee, but the instinct to fight for what was right was stronger than fear. She followed him quietly, unseen, hoping to find a chance to save her people. Rook paused near the edge of a destroyed building. He wiped blood from his mechanical arm. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. There was still work to do. He whispered to himself, a low, rough sound. They thought I was gone, they will know now. I am the storm they buried alive. Suddenly, a signal flashed in his eye implant. A map of the camp appeared before him. Showing Krevox's location, the Warlord had not yet noticed. Rook smiled faintly. He could wait, he could watch. He could plan, patience was a weapon, and fear was his ally. The night deepened. The alien camp shivered under the unseen threat. Rook moved through shadows, unseen, untouchable. He was not just a man. He was a promise. A warning to every alien soldier who believed humans were weak. And somewhere far in the camp, Krevox felt it. A chill down his spine, the whisper of death in the wind. And Rook, watching from the shadows, whispered again, I feast first. The stars blinked cold above the ruins. And the first wave of terror had begun. The humans were not finished. Not yet, and one man, broken but alive, was about to change everything. Night covered the battlefield like a thick black blanket. The fires had died, the screams had faded. But the war was not over. It was only changing shape. Somewhere among the ruins, Commander Rook walked alone, his boots pressing softly into the ash. He was hunting now, and his first target was Verox, the alien lieutenant known for his cruelty. Verox loved to hear humans cry. He believed fear was a song made only for the weak, but tonight, he would hear a different sound, the sound of his own fear. Rook moved carefully through the remains of an old city. The building stood broken and tired. Every step he took echoed softly, bouncing off the empty walls. He could smell iron and smoke. His metal arm clicked quietly as he loaded a sharp dart into his wrist launcher. The moonlight reflected faintly on his face, showing a man more shadow than flesh. Far ahead, Verox's camp burned bright. Aliens moved around in lazy circles, laughing and shouting. They were relaxed. They thought no human could reach this far. They didn't know that the ghost of their own war crimes was already inside the fence. Rook watched from a distance. He studied their rhythm, the guards, the lights, the noise. Every detail became a pattern in his mind. Then he began to move, silent as smoke. He crawled under fallen metal beams, slipped past two guards who never even turned their heads, his heartbeat steady, his breath calm. He was not afraid, he was focused. Ferox sat in the middle of the camp, laughing with a group of alien soldiers. In front of him, human prisoners knelt in a circle. They were tired, hungry, broken. One of them dared to look up. Ferox lifted his clawed hand and struck him hard. The man fell without a sound. Rook watched from the shadows. His fingers tightened on his weapon. His mind whispered old names, friends, soldiers, brothers, all dead. This moment was for them. He aimed, breathed in slowly and fired. The dart flew through the air. Silent and fast, it pierced Ferox's throat. The alien's laughter turned into a choking hiss. He reached up, clawing at his neck. The other aliens jumped in confusion, shouting and running toward him, but Rook was already gone. He melted into the darkness like smoke in the wind. Panic spread fast through the camp. "Something's here," one alien shouted. "It's the human ghost," another screamed. They fired their weapons wildly into the night. Laser beams cut through empty space, hitting walls, fires, and each other. But there was nothing to see, only shadows and silence. A small explosion lit up the far side of the camp, then another, then another. Rook had planted charges hours ago. Now the camp burned from inside out. Aliens ran in every direction, tripping over each other. Their cries filled the night as fear finally found them. Among the chaos, Rook moved like a whisper. He found the human prisoners and cut their chains. "Run," he said softly. The humans hesitated, staring at the figure before them, half man, half machine, covered in scars and firelight. But his voice carried something real, something human. They ran, disappearing into the dark. When the last prisoner was gone, Rook turned back toward the flames. Ferox's body lay twisted on the ground. Eyes open in horror, Rook knelt beside him, staring at the alien's lifeless face. "This is for the children of Terra," he murmured. He pressed a coin into Ferox's hand, the same coin with the broken wing. A message for Kravox. The hunt had begun by dawn. The camp was nothing but ashes. Smoke rose in long trails, reaching toward the pale sky. Rook stood at the edge of a cliff, watching, his face calm, unreadable. The wind carried the smell of burning metal, and somewhere in the distance the alien radios buzzed with panic. They spoke his name again and again, the human ghost, they said. "The first flame lives." Kravox heard the news inside his command bunker. He smashed his fist into the table. "Impossible," he roared. No one survived that blast, but deep inside he knew the truth. He remembered the eyes of the man who refused to die. He remembered the fire, and for the first time in many years, the warlord felt fear. He turned to his soldiers. "Find him," he shouted. "Bring me his head." But his voice trembled just a little, and that tremble was all it took for his army to lose faith. Back in the shadows, Rook adjusted the strap of his rifle. His next targets were already on his list. 7 lieutenants, 1 warlord. He would take them one by one. "No mercy, no rest," he whispered to himself. They thought humans were prey. His eyes burned as he looked toward the horizon. "But I am the hunter now." The wind blew softly through the ruins, carrying with it the smell of smoke and justice, and somewhere far away, the vultures circled again, but this time, they were not the only ones who feasted. The night stretched across the alien outpost like a cold blanket. The stars above looked dull, afraid to shine over a place filled with so much fear. The fires burned low, crackling quietly. Alien soldiers sat in small groups around the flickering flames, whispering to each other in hushed tones. They spoke not about orders, not about victory, but about him, the human ghost, the one they called the first flame, the one who hunted from the dark, killing their leaders one by one. No one had seen his face clearly. Some said he had no face at all, only a skull covered in fire. Others claimed he was half machine, half shadow. But all agreed on one thing: he came when the lights went out. And when he came, someone always died. One young alien soldier leaned close to the fire. Eyes wide, Ferox was strong, he whispered. He made humans scream for fun, but that human, he made Ferox scream. The others looked around nervously. "Don't say his name," one hissed. "It calls him." Their voices faded into the night wind. Above them, the moon hid behind thick clouds. Somewhere far from the firelight, a shape moved quietly, unseen. It was Commander Rook.
Watching, listening, learning. He had become more than a soldier now.
He was a story that walked, a nightmare given flesh. And he used that fear like a weapon. Each whisper about him made his enemies weaker. Each frightened look made them slower. He didn't need to fight an army. He only needed to make them afraid of the dark. Rook crouched on a broken rooftop. Scanning the camp below, he could see their weapons, their routes, their command posts. He noticed a new symbol painted on their flags, a mark of fear, a clawed hand surrounded by flame. His flame, he almost smiled, but didn't. He opened a small radio taken from an alien officer. The channel was full of panic. Unit 5 down. Unknown assailant, one voice shouted. Do not move alone, another warned. Kravox's voice came through last, deep and angry. Find the human ghost, he ordered. End him before the army loses faith. But even the warlord's words could not stop the spreading dread, because fear had already found its way inside every alien heart. As Rook listened, he noticed a faint sound behind him, a small crunch of gravel, soft but real. He turned quickly, his blade ready. A small alien girl stood there, the same one who had watched him free the prisoners. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were calm. She raised them slowly. Don't kill me, she whispered. I came to help. Rook said nothing at first, his mind calculating every possibility. Why? He asked finally, his voice low and rough. She swallowed hard. My family died because of Kravox, she said. My people follow him out of fear, not honor, but I am not like them. I can help you reach his core base. Rook's metal fingers tightened slightly. He studied her face. She was young, maybe 15 in human years. There was pain in her eyes, but also courage. Something human in the way she refused to bow. He nodded once. Then help me, he said. But if you betray me, I'll end it fast, she nodded. Not in fear, but in respect. They moved together through the dark ruins. The wind carried their shadows long across the cracked earth. At the edge of the next valley, they stopped. Below them, hundreds of alien soldiers sat near their fires. Some sharpened blades, some prayed, but most told stories, the same story. Again and again about the ghost that hunted them. The beast with human eyes. Rook listened quietly. They didn't even know he was close enough to hear them. One soldier pointed to the burning hill. He kills when we laugh, he said. He walks through fire without burning, another added. He wears the faces of the dead. The crowd trembled. Their fear had grown into something bigger than truth. Rook let it grow. Suddenly, one of the officers shouted, Silence! No more ghost stories. He kicked the fire. Scattering sparks into the air, the soldiers obeyed, but their faces showed only fear. Rook turned to the alien girl beside him. They don't need me to kill them, he said softly. They're already dying inside, but he wasn't done yet. Tonight, he would give them something new to fear. He attached small explosives along the fuel tanks near the camp, then carved a simple mark into the wall, a broken wing surrounded by ash. The sign of the first flame, as the two of them left the valley. Rook looked back one last time. The fires burned higher. Shadows danced wildly across the alien tents, and then the first explosion ripped through the night. The sound rolled like thunder, shaking the earth. Flames rose, turning the camp into a sea of light and death. From the smoke, a deep voice echoed across the valley. It was Rook's, distorted by his mask. Tell your warlord, he said. The ghost is not done feasting, the aliens screamed and ran. Some fired blindly into the smoke, but there was no one there. Only the fire and their own fear staring back at them. High above on the cliff, Rook watched quietly. The girl beside him trembled but didn't look away. She whispered, They will call you a monster. Rook's eyes stayed fixed on the burning camp. I am what they made me, he said, and tonight, the monsters eat last, the fire roared louder, painting the sky in red and gold and deep in the darkness. The legend of the first flame burned brighter than ever. The sun rose weak and pale over the smoking ruins. Its light touched twisted metal and blackened earth. The world looked tired, scarred, and quiet. But deep inside that silence, something powerful was changing. The alien army was breaking. Fear had spread faster than fire. The ghost stories had become warnings, and the warnings had become truth. Every alien soldier now looked over their shoulder, afraid of the shadows, afraid of the human who refused to die. Commander Rook stood on a ridge overlooking the valley. The cold wind brushed against his torn armor. His eyes were sharp, but his face looked older, worn by sleepless nights and endless battles. He had become both a savior and a curse, the last soldier of a fallen world, the living echo of every dead human still whispering for justice. Beside him stood the young alien girl, Sira. She had helped him escape the valley after the last attack. Her small hands clutched a stolen data pad, glowing with secret information. She looked up at Rook with both fear and faith. "We found it," she said softly. Rook turned his head. "Found what?" Sierra pointed to the screen. Kravox's last plan. On the pad was a map. It showed a massive energy core deep beneath the old capital ruins. The aliens had built it to power their army. But Kravox had turned it into something worse, a bomb. A weapon strong enough to wipe out the last human survivors hiding in the mountains. Rook's jaw tightened. "He's going to burn everything," he muttered. Sierra nodded slowly. "He said he will leave nothing behind. Not even the ashes." Her voice shook as she spoke. Rook stared at the map, silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Then we stop him." Sierra looked at him, shocked. "You can't face him alone," she whispered. Rook's eyes stayed cold. "I don't need an army," he said. "I just need a reason." And he had one. Every grave, every broken city, every child's scream. All of it was the reason. They moved together through the ruins. Rook carried his rifle, his blade, and a bag of charges strapped to his belt. Sierra followed behind, light on her feet but heavy in her heart. Every sound made her flinch, every shadow made her stare. But Rook never slowed down, his steps were firm. His path clear, by nightfall they reached the outskirts of the capital. Once it had been a place of lights and laughter. Now it was only bones and smoke. Tall alien towers loomed in the distance, glowing faint blue with power. Guards patrolled the streets, scanning every corner. But Rook had learned to move where no eye could follow. They slipped through the cracks, through the drains and tunnels. The city pulsed with the sound of machinery. Deep and steady, it was alive in a dark way. At the center stood the Warlord's fortress. Kravox's throne of iron and blood, it reached high into the sky. "Proud and cruel," Sierra whispered. "That's where he keeps the detonator." Rook nodded. "Then that's where he dies." As they moved closer, Sierra stopped suddenly. Her eyes widened as a familiar sound echoed from ahead. Alien soldiers. A full patrol was marching straight toward them. Rook pulled her into the shadows of a broken wall. The soldiers passed, talking in low voices. "The Warlord says the human ghost will come here," one said. Another replied, "If he does, we'll burn him alive." They laughed nervously. Rook's grip tightened on his weapon. "They already tried that," he whispered. "And I'm still here." When the patrol moved on, they slipped deeper into the fortress. The walls were covered in strange markings, symbols of war and conquest. Each one told a story of a planet conquered, a people broken. Rook looked at them and felt the weight of humanity's pain. This was the heart of the enemy, and he was finally inside it. They reached a control chamber filled with glowing consoles. At the center, a massive hologram displayed the bomb timer. It was counting down, 3 days left until everything would burn. Sierra's voice trembled. "Can we stop it?" Rook walked forward, his boots echoing softly. "Yes," he said. "But we'll have to cut the head off the serpent first." Suddenly, alarms blared through the fortress. Red lights flashed everywhere. A metallic voice shouted, "Intruders detected." Rook's heart beat faster, but his face stayed calm. He turned to Sierra. "Run if you can't fight." She shook her head fiercely. "I'll stay." For the first time, Rook almost smiled. "You're braver than most humans I knew," he said. Footsteps thundered in the hall outside. Dozens of alien soldiers rushed in. Rook raised his rifle and fired without hesitation. Energy blasts tore through the air. Sierra hid behind a console, rerouting the bomb's signal lines. The fight was fast, brutal, and loud. When it ended, the floor was littered with smoke and silence. Rook leaned against a wall, bleeding but unshaken. Sierra looked up from the console, tears in her eyes. "I stopped the timer," she said, "but only for 12 hours. Rook wiped the blood from his face. "That's enough," he said. He looked toward the highest tower where Kravox waited. "Now I finish what began on the battlefield." The wind howled outside the broken walls. The fortress burned with red light. Sierra watched as Rook reloaded his weapon. There was something different in his eyes now. Not just rage, but peace. He had found his purpose again. As he walked toward the stairs leading up to Kravox's chamber, Sierra called softly, "If you don't come back, what do I tell them?" Rook stopped, looked over his shoulder. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that humans don't die quietly." He disappeared into the firelit hallway, each step echoing like a heartbeat of vengeance. And above them all, the storm began to rise again. Because this was no longer just war. This was the turning point, where the hunter would finally face the warlord, and the ghosts of the fallen would watch in silence, waiting to see who feasted last. The fortress trembled under its own power. Engines deep within the walls roared like sleeping monsters. Red lights flashed through every corridor, painting the steel halls with fire, and in the middle of that storm, Commander Rook walked alone. He moved like a shadow made of purpose. His armor cracked, his arm bleeding sparks, his step steady and cold. Each footstep echoed against the metal floor. Behind him, the bodies of alien guards lay silent, their weapons smoking. The path to the top was open now, but it was not empty. At the highest tower of the fortress stood General Kravox, the warlord of the Crimson Fleets, the Butcher of Earth. He waited beside a wide window of glass that overlooked the burning world below. The sky outside was black with smoke and ash, and for the first time, Kravox felt something strange inside him. Not pride, not rage, but unease. He turned when he heard the doors slide open, and there he was, the ghost, the human who refused to die. Commander Rook stepped through the smoke, his blade in one hand, his rifle slung across his back. His voice low and calm. "You took everything from me," Kravox laughed, though his voice shook a little. "I took nothing, human," he said. "You lost because you were weak." Rook's eyes narrowed, his expression unreadable. "Then let's see which one of us breaks first," he said. The room exploded into motion. Kravox charged, his massive claws slamming down with thunder. Rook rolled aside, sparks flying as metal struck stone. He swung his blade upward, slicing through the air. Kravox blocked with his armored arm. The impact ringing through the tower, the two warriors moved like beasts. Every hit shook the walls, every breath came out as a growl. Kravox's strength was brutal, raw, but Rook's speed was like lightning. He dodged, countered, struck again. Blood and oil sprayed across the floor. Neither would stop, neither would bow, Kravox roared. "You fight like a machine, not a man," Rook answered. "Machines don't feel pain, but I do, and that's why I win." He slammed his metal fist into Kravox's chest. Denting the armor, Kravox staggered back, rage blazing in his red eyes. "You think killing me will change anything?" The warlord spat. Rook's voice came like thunder. "No, but it will make it right." Below the tower, Sira worked at the control room console. The bomb's countdown was still frozen at 12 hours, but the system was trying to restart. She typed fast, hands trembling. Her eyes kept darting to the ceiling where the battle rumbled above. "Come on," she whispered. "Just hold on." Up in the chamber, the fight grew more violent. Rook's armor broke piece by piece, but he didn't slow down. He used everything, his fists, his blade, even the walls. Kravox caught him once. Throwing him across the room, Rook crashed through a steel pillar, coughing blood. But when Kravox came closer, Rook smiled weakly. "That all you got?" He growled and threw a grenade at his face. The explosion shook the entire tower. Flames burst from the walls. Shards of glass rained down. Kravox stumbled, roaring. Half his armor burning, Rook limped forward. One leg dragging, his weapon gone, he reached for the blade stuck in the ground and raised it again. "You should have died," Kravox hissed. "I did," Rook whispered. "Now I'm what comes after." Their blades clashed again. Metal singing against metal, they pushed against each other. Faces inches apart, Kravox's voice broke. "You're just one man," Rook answered, his voice low and fierce. "One man is enough." With one final roar, Rook drove his blade into Kravox's chest. The warlord's body jerked, his claws frozen mid-air. For a moment, time stopped. Then Kravox fell to his knees. Gasping, Rook stood over him, breathing hard. Smoke rose around them like ghosts watching in silence. Kravox looked up, eyes dimming. "You humans never know when to die," he whispered. Rook knelt beside him, voice cold and calm. "That's why we win," he said. Then he pulled the blade free, and the warlord fell silent forever. Sira's screen flashed downstairs. The system shut down fully. The countdown erased. She cried out in relief. He did it. But her joy faded when she realized the tower was collapsing. Rook looked up as the walls cracked and fire spread. He staggered toward the exit but fell to his knees. His energy was gone, his strength fading fast. He looked down at the coin in his hand, the one with the broken wing, the last memory of his fallen team. He closed his fist around it and whispered, "We made it." A shadow moved behind him. Sira's small figure appeared through the smoke. She grabbed his arm, pulling. "Get up!" she shouted. "We have to go." Rook smiled faintly. shaking his head. "The war is done," he said. "You saved the world." The ceiling began to fall. Sierra screamed, "No, I won't leave you." But Rook pushed her toward the door. "Go," he said softly. She froze, tears streaming down her face. "I'll tell them what you said," she whispered. Rook's voice was quiet but firm. "Tell them humans feast last but never starve." The tower collapsed behind her as she ran. Fire swallowed the sky, light and shadow mixing in one final storm, and as the fortress fell, the name of the first flame burned into legend, a story carried by wind and ashes, of a human who refused to die quietly, and who feasted before the vultures could even circle the sky. The fortress was gone. It had fallen like a dying star. The black smoke rose high into the red sky. Ash drifted through the air like snow, slow and silent. The warlord was dead. The bomb was destroyed, but so was everything around it. The ground was cracked and burned. The wind howled across the wasteland. And from the ashes, one small figure walked forward. It was Sierra, her clothes torn, her skin covered in dust and blood, but her eyes were bright. She had survived, and in her hand she carried something small and shining, a metal feather. She stopped at the edge of the broken valley. The world around her was quiet now. No soldiers, no machines, no screams, only the whisper of fire dying in the distance. She looked back toward the ruins, her heart heavy. The man who had saved her was gone, the human who became a legend, Commander Rook. He had stayed behind when the tower fell, and now, all that was left of him was this feather, the same symbol carved on his armor, the mark of the first flame. Sierra knelt down, her hands trembling. She placed the feather gently on the ground. The wind caught it and made it spin softly. It glowed faintly in the sunlight, she whispered. "You said humans don't die quietly." Her voice broke. "Now I see why." For a long moment she stayed there, silent. Then she stood and turned toward the mountains. She began to walk, step by step. She knew where she had to go. There were still survivors out there, humans hiding in the northern caves. She had seen them once before, the last free people, and now she had to tell them the story. Days passed. The wasteland stretched endlessly. The nights were cold. The days were cruel. But she didn't stop. Every time she wanted to give up, she heard his voice again, low and steady. "Go," he had said. "Tell them humans feast last but never starve." Those words pushed her forward through pain and hunger. When she finally reached the mountain ridge, she saw light, faint, warm, human light. Dozens of survivors came out, thin and pale but alive. They saw her and froze, unsure. She raised her hand slowly. "I bring news," she said, her voice weak but clear. "The warlord is dead." The crowd gasped. An old soldier stepped forward, his eyes wide. "Who killed him?" he asked. Sierra took a deep breath. "A human," she said. "One who refused to die." She told them everything. About the ghosts, the fire, the fear. About the man who became a legend. And about the final battle that ended it all. They listened in silence. Some cried, some smiled through tears. And when she showed them the metal feather, they bowed their heads. The old soldier took it gently and said, "This is no symbol of death. It's a promise." That night, the survivors lit a fire on the mountain. Not a fire of war, but of memory. They passed the feather hand to hand. And every person who touched it whispered the same words. The first flame burns forever, far away beyond the stars. The story of the human ghost spread through alien worlds. Traders whispered it in dark markets. Soldiers repeated it around campfires. And mothers told it to their children to remind them what fear really was. They called him by many names: the last soldier, the flamewalker, the shadow of vengeance. But humans remembered him simply as Rook, the man who feasted before the vultures. And somewhere in the ruins of the old fortress, beneath stone and fire, something still glowed. A faint red light pulsed within the dust. It was Rook's armor core, still warm, still alive. The camera of memory would linger there, showing a single hand half buried in ash, fingers curled around another metal feather. The wind moved softly across the ruins, and for a moment it almost sounded like a whisper, a voice low and rough, the same voice that haunted warlords and inspired survivors. "I feast first." The screen of the mind would fade from flame to silence, then to stars, and above those stars, a small ship would rise. Sierra sat inside it. Guiding it through the sky, she carried the stories, the codes and the feather behind her. The earth glowed like a wounded heart, but a living one, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered to herself, "This is not the end. This is the beginning of peace." The ship vanished into the clouds, leaving a burning trail of light, and in that light, the voice of the legend spoke again, soft but eternal. "Hope the vultures feast fast," the warlord had once said. But now even the universe remembered the reply. "I feast first." Start with slow ambient wind and faint heartbeat sounds. Add a rising orchestral note as Syrah finds the feather. Then let silence fall on the line. "I feast first."